So we're going to go ahead and get started. So like I said, welcome everybody to EduTalk. This is the EduTalk for September. We're going to be going over um, strategies to get your professional development approved and in the budget. Um, Today with us, we have a dear friend of mine, a great colleague, Jennifer Williams. Uh, Jennifer, I you're joining us from Maryland?
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we have Jennifer with us today, and she's going to be going over some of those strategies. And then after that, we're going to be breaking up into breakout groups, so that way we can all talk a little bit. And we've got some and that way we can share some ideas. We've got some questions also, so that way we can all talk about those. So without further ado, I will go ahead and give the mic over to Jennifer, and again, thanks for being with us. So take it away, Jennifer.
All right. Well, good evening, everybody. Like Louise said, my name is Jennifer Williams. I currently serve as language access supervisor in Columbia, Maryland. Before that, I worked in Austin, Texas. I'm really honored to be here tonight, and I'll just share um, some strategies that you may find useful when you're seeking out financial assistance for professional development from your organization. Every organization is very different. And so these are just meant to be some strategies that I've found useful in the past and that you may find useful just to get you started. And you can mold them to serve you in your organization. Go to the next one. All right, so I'm gonna split this into three main parts. I'm gonna talk first about some of the strategies that you can use before you even ask to go into professional development, and before you even approach your leadership to fund your professional development. And then in the middle, I'll say, okay, I'll talk about some strategies that you could use when you go and ask for it. And then at the end, we'll talk about what do you do when you're there and after you come back from the professional development. So before you even think about asking for professional development, every organization, like I said before, is different. There are some things that we need to keep in mind before we start the process of thinking of asking for funding. Funding is usually the main reason that I've found in my experience why professional development gets denied. Most organizations understand the need for professional development, understand that there is value, especially us in education. Um, I think HR and our administrators understand that they would find some value in sending us to professional development. However, there's so many competing factors all the time when trying to decide where to allocate funds. And again, in educational settings, every line item in the budget, it's important for student outcomes. So how do they even get to decide? Administrators do have a difficult decisions to make when it comes to where to allocate the funds that are available. So before we ask, start with researching. Research and educate yourself about available professional development opportunities. Of course, nowadays there is Google, there is organizations such as this that you could go online and find out trainings or talks just like this one. But another thing that sometimes we don't think about is that you could also ask your peers and your other professionals in the industry. I know when I started myself as an interpreter, like many of us, I started as a volunteer interpreter, interpreting in church and for missionaries and when I lived in Panama. And I really wasn't thinking about interpreting as a career. So I didn't know about what was out there and what was available for training. And it wasn't until I was around other professional translators and until I worked in my previous school district, I really didn't know until my colleagues started sharing about what certifications they had, how did they get those certifications, the classes they'd taken, the schools that offer some of the trainings and the conferences that they attended. And once they start sharing that, it did spark some curiosity in me to look and seek out some of the opportunities that were available out there. So do your research. After you research what's there, you may come with a lot or a little depending on what your interests are. But after you do that, make sure that you choose wisely and you choose professional development opportunities that bring the most value to your organization. Because your organization is, you're asking them to invest in you. And at the end, public or private entities, they're looking for a return in investment. So you have to have that in mind when you're listing what do you um, want to train in. For example, if you're in education, I'm not sure that your organization would be so keen into paying for a purely a medical professional development where it focuses on medical terms. So you want to make sure that it's aligned to the goals of your organization. Um, your organization again will not pay for anything that is not beneficial for their goals. And before you choose the training that you want to attend, you want to know what those goals are. And I'll give you a little example in a moment. And my advice for this is that you prepare as you would for a interview. So before that, yes, how are you going to know what are your organization's values? And you can go to the next slide. So in order to know what to align your professional development with, you need to know what are your organization values. So in my case, for example, my current school district does everything by the strategic plan of action. So before I ask for anything, not just professional development, but anything that I want to change in my program, anything that I want to implement in my program, I I go back to the strategic plan of action and then I look at the mission and vision and talk, based on that. So as you can see here, the mission and vision of the school district that I now serve at talks about staff and students embracing diversity, creating inclusive environments. So when I am bringing up PDs or bringing up anything that I want to implement or anything that I need and that I need funding for, I make sure that I use the same wording that is explained in a mission and vision for the school district. Again, spend time researching and getting to know your school district. Another thing that I found in that same strategic plan of action, and let me take a step back, many school districts have pages kind of dedicated to talk about their mission, their vision, their goals, their strategies. And so I found in the same strategic call of action that my district uses is that I found the wording, the exact wording I needed for to submit my request. So for in here it says, staff are effective in their role and have equitable access to professional learning and leadership development. So I make sure that I bring that up and quote the strategic plan of action, because it's not just me saying I need it, but it's part of the core values of my organization. So get to know the core values of your organization so that you could use that same wording when you're presenting your choices to your organization, and that so that also you could educate yourself making the choices match the vision, mission, and core values of your organization. um, if you have several trainings that you would like to attend, make sure that you bring it up in priority order. So choose wisely as well. We can dream, because there may be several that match the core values of our organization. There may be several that that makes sense, but we may not be able to choose all of them. So once you find them, make sure that you kind of prioritize them as well. All right. So we start number one with building a plan. Number two, we do we research. We choose what PDs we will like and align to the goals of our organization. And then the next step is to build relationships. You have to build relationships and get to know the people that make decisions about funding. I will say that as an introvert myself, this is probably my least favorite part of the process. However, in the past, this has also been, in several occasions, the determining factor on getting PD approved. The relationships I have had and the people I've had advocating for me. um, Leadership is definitely more willing to pay for your training if they know you and they know your work. And so go to the person that makes the decisions. Be bold about it, uh, and go to the person that makes decisions about funding and professional development, not just in passing. Like, do not just say like, oh, I know who that person is, but be intentional, be strategic about it, be genuine about building a relationship with that person, but make an effort to identify who they are, make an effort to shake their hands, tell them your name, uh, ask them what they're working on, tell them what you're working on. Um, you could start again by saying hi and just kind of building from there. Small talk can be uncomfortable at the beginning, but it does put a face, a name, and a role to the money that people are approving to be spent. So make sure that you're building those relationships, and not just building them and forgetting them, but also cultivating those relationships. Um, Talking about role, your work is also a great way to build relationships. In my previous role, we were with the communications department. And through time and well-established processes, the team was able to deliver translations within a really, really short turnaround time. And they were able to come through during really high stake situations. And that also helped the team have a good reputation with the department and build those relationships through work. And so this all came I was able to see this in a tangible way when last year, after I moved on to my position here, I moved states. um, Both the team's reputation and the relationships that I had built during my time there as a coordinator came into play. When at first the team wanted to go to this conference, they'd asked to go to the conference. They were denied funding to attend the conference. And I had at that point left the district, but I was still in relationship with some team members. And I also had a really good relationship with my previous supervisor. So I reached out to her and told her that, one of the team members was selected to speak at this conference. That was a really good conference. It was a really good opportunity. And I was also able to kind of talk to her about how my transition out had affected the team and how stressed out they were. And within the day, the conference was approved. The whole team was able to go within some conditions, but they went from a no to a yes if you do all these things. And that's just a testament of the team's hard work, but also years of building and spending time building that relationship with whoever was making the decision. So it does pay off to take time and build relationships within your department, within your district, and especially with decision makers. And I'm not going to say that it's not intimidating. It is, but it's worth it, and it's worth the effort. You also want to make sure that you are aware of budget timelines. That's also a tricky one. If you do not ask for money or do not ask for the funding at the right time, you will not get funded. Start finding out. Let me just take a step back, not just the timelines, but also like what allocations are there. I know in my previous district there was a little bit of allocations for us to go in a for to yearly professional development opportunities. My current district is done differently, and I've just learned that. So ask and ask early. Last year I kind of experienced asking, and it was a little bit too late. So make sure that you one know if there is any money, and if there is not, then you start, the process of researching and all of that. Um, and then make sure that you know the timelines for the budget. If you do not ask again, you will at the right time you will not get funded. Your PD will not get funded, and start finding out where the budget decisions are made, when at what time the decisions are made, at what time of the year. Some districts, for example, do it during the second semester. Some districts do it pretty early. I know before I used to look into it in January. Now I'm already looking into it. So you have to find out when is it done. As early, once you find out when, as early, but also you can also ask at the end of the budget cycle. In many cases, there are funding that is left from other line items that you can, and sometimes you can move around, and there is money sometimes that has to be spent before the cycle. So ask early so that it could be planned and in the budget. But also, if something comes up, if you see that there is a PD that you would like to take, still ask because there might be funds. Another thing is to ask in between too. So you ask pretty much at any time. Last year, actually, that's how I got one of my PDs funded because I came into the district after the budget cycle had been approved and gone, and really nobody was doing PDs in my office. My office was brand new. And I had already planned to go to this PD. And so I asked, and they happened to have some grant funds that were allotted to that we were allowed to use for professional development. So ask at any time. The worst that you could hear is no. So don't be afraid to ask. And then be prepared to answer questions. Make sure that you're prepared to ask to answer specific questions. Do the math. Be very, very specific about the cost and the dollar amount that you're asking for. Take into account every expense, and also be prepared to answer questions about who's going to do your job when you're gone into this professional development. Will the whole team attend? Will there be a person on call? You need to, but before you go and ask, you need to be able to answer how is the work going to be done while you're not there. You can make sure you need to make sure that you can ensure your administrator that everything is going to keep going while you are unavailable. All right, so that was before you ask. Now is going to be we're going to think about once you ask, you've done your research, you're prepared, and now you're gonna ask. And so once you ask, they may say no, and you need to ask again. No, and it's fine. Just ask again. Do not let a no discourage you, or deter you from what you know that you need to be a better professional. Double down your effort on building those relationships if you get a no. Talking about your work with others in your department will also help move that no to a yes next time you ask, or to a maybe, or a not now, maybe later. But that all is progress, and that's all you kind of spending time building relationships, spending time talking about your work, spending time just being knowledgeable about what's out there, and advocating for PD for you and your team. Like I mentioned before, there's sometimes grant funds available, and even funds available at the end of the cycle. So maybe it was no at the beginning of the year, but towards the end of the year, it's a yes because there is some funding available. So do not be scared to ask, because you might get a no. Um, be willing to compromise. And sometimes we think that we need to have the whole pie to win, and we really don't. Everybody can have a piece of the pie, and so you may get a yes, but which is kind of a little bit of what the team got. In my example from last year, reality is that some school districts may not have the budget to pay for every single expense, especially if you have a team that you want to take into PD. They may not be able to pay for everybody. So present a proposal with for everything, but consider maybe covering or compromising by covering some of the costs yourself. Like sometimes they do shared rooms, or paying for meals or flights. This is something that you can account for, kind of when you're calculating the cost. Okay, this is how much it costs, and what could I afford to pay if they cannot cover the entire cost. Just kind of be open to options. There is a conference that I want to go to this year, and I asked for funding on. I'm not sure that it will be approved. However, I've set my mind to kind of, okay, if my district pays for my entrance fee and my hotel, maybe I could pay for my meals and the transportation and other things. So just kind of have that in the back of your mind, and if your funding allows, then uh be open to that. Another thing is, it may not they may not approve the PD that you really really want, but there are other PDs out there that are free or less expensive. So start with that. Start investing maybe small with like PDs like this one, where you show your institution that you're willing to spend the time and willing to take any kind of professional development that is out there, not just necessarily the one that it's super, super expensive. All right, so after you get approved, yay, you get approved. What do we do now? So, you need to follow through with your promises. What did you tell your employer that you were going to do if you got approved for this professional development? So some PDs you're in town, it doesn't disrupt. It's after hours, but some do take you out of town, and you do have to take time off. So follow through with what you promised. If you said that the office would be covered, make sure that you deliver, make sure that you plan for it. If you said that you would have vendors available, make sure that the vendors have the contact information for the people, they have your contact information, and that you're willing to pick up the call if you need to. You want to make sure that you go over all the ifs before you leave, because if an issue comes up and you promise something, you may not be able to come back from that. They will remember that they sent you to this PD and you did not deliver. And so you want to make sure that you follow through with your promises. You want to make sure that you are able to vocalize what you learn. Share what you learn when you come back. Do not keep it for yourself. Make it loud and clear that while you were gone, you were learning. Make sure that you take notes during the sessions. Make sure that this goes without saying, but make sure that you attend the sessions. That your employer knows that they didn't just spend their money on your vacation, but that you bring practical, tangible ideas that can be suggested to your organization. That is you investing in on your next PD by kind of following through and closing this one out the right way. And make sure that you schedule time, write in a thank you email to the supervisor, whoever approved it, um, detailing those practical ideas as well and the things that you'll learn during that PD. And that's all I have. Yeah, that's all I have. That's all I have. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. We appreciate the information you gave us. Definitely allows us to take into consideration all those points that you brought to the table. So now we're gonna ask Luis to place the questions. We have some questions that we want to utilize once we go into the breakout rooms, so that we can have this discussion. Maybe you have some ideas that have worked for you in your district, that you can share with the group. So we'll do our traditional breakout rooms, and then afterwards we'll be able to come back together and talk about some of the things that you guys discussed in the breakout rooms. But before we go to the breakout rooms, we want to do an announcement, and we have the great pleasure and honor to announce that the board at AAITE has appointed a new director, and her name is Jennifer Williams. She just presented for us today. She is part of the board now. So we want to say congratulations to Jennifer. She brings a lot of experience and knowledge, and this will definitely help us to continue moving forward. So congratulations, Jennifer.